Have you ever wondered if the world we know is haunted by something older, something darker than we could imagine? What if, walking among us in plain sight, there were people wielding ancient knowledge, people who know how to heal or harm with powers that lie just outside of our understanding? Today, we're diving into the real stories of witches, not fairy tale broomsticks and pointy hats, but real people caught up in fear, betrayal, and secrets that have left scars on history itself. These are stories of whispers, accusations, and sometimes brutal punishments, of those who claim to practice the forbidden arts, and of those who paid the price for merely being suspected. Let's uncover the strange truths and shocking details of these dark histories. 1. The Witch of Endor. Our journey begins in the dusty deserts of ancient Israel, over 3,000 years ago. In the pages of the Bible, we find the earliest tale of a woman with powers that challenge belief, the Witch of Endor. King Saul, in desperation, seeks her out. The night is still, and the king is terrified, for he is in violation of his own laws against magic. And yet, he is driven by his fear of an impending battle and his need for guidance. In this hidden encounter, the Witch of Endor calls forth the spirit of Samuel, a prophet. And what she conjures is no parlor trick. She pulls from the shadows a figure of the dead. Saul is horrified, but he listens as Samuel's spirit foretells doom. The next day, the battle is lost, and Saul meets his fate on the battlefield. The story doesn't end there. For generations, people have debated, was she truly a witch, or merely a wise woman, perhaps even an early practitioner of a secret, ancient faith? Or was she simply a pawn in a king's desperate gamble? Whatever the answer, the Witch of Endor's tale reveals a key truth: the boundary between the living and the dead, the sacred and the profane, has always been thinner than we dare imagine. 2. The Pendle Witches. Now, fast forward to England, 1612. This is the tale of the Pendle Witches, a story of betrayal, poverty, and the dangerous power of accusation. In the shadow of Pendle Hill, a group of women known for their cures and charms caught the attention of the authorities. Two rival families, the Demdikes and the Chattoxes, lived off what little they could earn in a harsh world that had no patience for the poor and the strange. The accusations begin small. A sick neighbor here, a sudden death there. But then, a young girl named Janet Device, barely 9 years old, gives testimony that seals her family's fate. She stands in court, finger pointed, and accuses her mother, her brother, and others of witchcraft. It's an astonishing betrayal, one that has haunted her name ever since. The court accepts her words, and in one swift motion, the fate of the Pendle Witches is sealed. 11 people, mostly women, many elderly, sentenced to die. They are hanged as a warning, a show of force against anyone who might challenge society's norms or dabble in the mysterious. Today, historians wonder, were they actually practicing magic, or were they simply unfortunate scapegoats in a time of fear and suspicion? The truth, though lost in time, leaves one lasting mark. The Pendle Witch Trials serve as a dark reminder of how easily a whisper, a child's testimony, or an accusation can turn into a death sentence. 3. The Salem Witch Trials, the girl who started it all. Of course, no story of witches would be complete without visiting Salem, Massachusetts, the most infamous witch hunt in history. But here's the part that many don't know: the chaos began not with spellcasting, but with the strange behavior of a single young girl. In 1692, 9-year-old Betty Paris suddenly began to scream, fall into fits, and claim she was being bitten and pinched by unseen forces. Soon, other girls followed her lead. The Puritan community was terrified, and the accusations flew. Before anyone could stop it, 20 people, mostly women, were executed, and more than 100 others imprisoned. All on the words of a few frightened young girls. Historians argue about why this frenzy happened. Some blame a type of fungus that could have poisoned their food, causing hallucinations. Others think it was simply fear and envy, magnified by the strict Puritan lifestyle. But one thing is certain, this tragic episode revealed how deeply rooted fear of the other was in society, and how, when fear takes over, reason and compassion can disappear. The Salem Witch Trials ended with apologies from the town and admissions of guilt from those who let the frenzy unfold. But the legacy remains, etched into the American consciousness as a lesson on the dangers of mass hysteria and the terrifying power of accusation. 4. The Benandanti, Italy's secret warlocks. Not all witches were agents of evil in the eyes of their communities. In 16th century Italy, a mysterious group of people known as the Benandanti, the Good Walkers, were accused of witchcraft, but they claimed to use their powers for the protection of the land. The Benandanti were peasants born with the caul, a part of the amniotic sac still attached to them. This, they believed, granted them powers to enter into spiritual battles to protect their villages from dark forces. These nocturnal fights were no minor affair. They claimed to fight witches and malevolent spirits to keep the crops safe and ensure a good harvest. But as the church's influence grew, even these good witches found themselves branded as heretics. They were interrogated, tortured, and forced to admit to practices they never engaged in. The Benandanti became a lost chapter in the story of witchcraft, an example of how those who deviated from the norm, even to protect others, were met with suspicion and punishment. The Benandanti remind us that in a world filled with fear, even protectors can be persecuted, and those who don't fit the mold are vulnerable. 5. The Witch of Kilkenny, Ireland's first witch trial. Let's cross over to Ireland, where in 1324, Alice Keitler, an upper-class woman of wealth and power, became the first person in Ireland to be tried for witchcraft. Her story is filled with intrigue and betrayal on a grand scale. Alice had been married 4 times, and each of her husbands died under mysterious circumstances. Some of her stepchildren, angry at being disinherited, began to spread rumors that Alice was poisoning her husbands to inherit their wealth. The accusations turned darker. They claimed she practiced sorcery, worshipped the devil, and brewed potions in the dead of night. But Alice was powerful, with allies in high places, and she fled before her sentence could be carried out. Her maidservant, however, was not so fortunate. She was tortured and burned alive in Alice's place, becoming the first recorded person executed for witchcraft in Ireland. Alice Keitler's trial was less about magic and more about family betrayal and the fear of powerful women. Her story tells us that witch trials weren't just about superstition. They were often used to settle scores, punish women who didn't conform, and rid society of those who posed a threat to the established order. Conclusion. Witches, warlocks, the Benandanti, and healers, these stories span continents, cultures, and centuries. But all share something in common. They reveal our age-old struggle with fear, with power, and with the unknown. For those branded as witches, the price of defying society was steep, often fatal. They became symbols of everything society feared and couldn't understand. Whether they actually wielded magic or simply made the wrong enemies, the echoes of their stories haunt us to this day. They remind us of the thin line between fact and superstition, between fear and understanding. And maybe that's why, centuries later, we're still fascinated by the tales of witches among us. Not because we believe in magic potions or enchanted spells, but because we recognize that these people represent the outsiders, the rebels, the ones who challenge the norms. And in a world that's often quick to judge and slow to understand, their stories remind us to look closer, to question more, and to be wary of letting fear control us. So, next time you hear of witches and magic, remember, there was a time when these stories weren't just bedtime tales. They were warnings, they were truths, and for those who lived them, they were the difference between life and death. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time as we uncover more of the world's hidden stories. Thanks for watching.